I don't know what came over to me. Like one of my buddy Nico is his name. He's like, like pass the ball. And I was like, I'm not passing the ball. I don't know what it was. At that moment, I just felt this is it. This is the health food right now. And I remember he's like, why don't you pass? It was all dark, candles. He's like, why don't you pass in the ball? And he sees me like look at the stuff, at the fleischiks. He's like, no, you're not going to do this. I'm like, oh yeah. I go in, I eat the fleischiks. It was the best, cholent I ever had in my life. And I haven't looked back since.
A very common question that people have when they look at Judaism, they say, hey, there's so many studies, there's so many facts about the world, about, let's say, even health, as you heard just now with Rabbi Eade, that doesn't really align with the Torah. But the more you look at the Torah, the more you realize how much of the world aligns with the Torah. And there's no surprise to that, because the blueprint of the world is the Torah. And in this week's episode, you're going to hear how Rabbi Eade came from a Jewish background, but totally non-related to Orthodox Judaism, a Reform background, and how he found his way and his lifestyle, how that actually melded into a Orthodox life, and how he used his experiences to help his Talmidim and find himself and the journey that he had in trying all other religions out. It's a fascinating conversation. This episode is in memory of Shimon David ben Yaakov Shlomo, as well as Miriam Sarah Bas Yaakov Moshe, and you will hear about the perfect way for you to buy your ESROG and lulav this year. You'll hear about one of my favorite podcasts, Good Faith Effort Podcast, and you'll hear about why all my friends and family are telling me I'm looking great these days because I'm rocking Twilery, and we have a promo code for you. This is an episode about tshuva, about returning, and if you feel lost, or even if you just don't feel perfect, this is an episode for you. Here's my conversation with Rabbi Eade. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Here I am with Rabbi Moshe Chaim Eade, all the way from Eretz Yisrael, but not originally from Eretz Yisrael.
I'm originally from Toronto.
Okay, could you tell us about your upbringing and what, I guess, your Yiddishkeit and what your life was like back there?
Sure, thank you, Yaakov. I am born in Toronto, and grew up in a Reform family, loving, very strong Reform background. We'd go to shul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, which I must say is probably the two worst days to come to shul if you're not really into it, because one of the days you don't eat, and the other day is two super long days. And that was basically, I felt estranged from the Jewish way. I felt things were just distant, far from me, and it didn't seem personal. But I knew I was a Yid, and therefore we had Sunday school, and because we were really from Tuesday school, and that was basically the extent of it. We have a bar mitzvah, you get a kiddush cup, you get a handshake from the president of the shul, and that's basically the end of it.
At what point in your life did you realize that that path wasn't for you?
I saw kind of early on that whatever they were selling in the temple, I didn't relate to it. I didn't feel like it was speaking to the human being of today. I would say that I was always a bit different in the way that I was seeking something. I was looking for something. And later in life, I realized that every single one of us has a soul inside of us, and that we're looking for something deep and meaningful in this world. And if we don't find it in something meaningful, so we go on the streets looking for all sorts of things. So I would say that the beginning in the middle of middle school and public school, Toronto is a very multicultural place, a lot of different chevra, a lot of different people there. And I just started looking and looking, just what is it all about? I didn't have this language, but what's the emes?
It's a very deep question for anyone, but especially someone in high school.
So like I said, I was a bit different. I spent more time in the principal's office than probably all of my friends put together. I became very close to the vice principal. That's usually the one that deals with the troublemakers. And I just felt that there was something like not happening. I was challenging everything. And I think that's the sign of everything that later I came to learn in yeshivas, is to have a Yiddish cup and say, Mehecha Teisi, what is the truth? What is it all about? And I just felt that maybe at a young age, I was more attuned to that, of what is it all about? And one of the ways I think I expressed that was I got involved in running, cross-country running. I like the idea of cross-country running because you're basically running against yourself. You're not trying to beat anyone, you just run. And I found that it gave me time to just think. I would run for very, very long periods of time, just run, just into the forest, into the woods, into the mountains, and just think, just what is it all about? What is it all about? What is life all about? I know it seems like it was a bit of a question, but I guess I started late because Avram Avinu started when he was 3. So I was already a late bloomer. But Avram Avinu had a tough upbringing, and he started to say the same thing, just what is going on in this world? Mi balabir, there's such an amazing world out there. It's so gorgeous, it's so beautiful. I always loved art, I always loved ideas, just what is it all about? So that was the beginnings, was yes, from a young age.
Okay, so could you give us a taste of the different places that you went in search of truth?
So religion in the beginning felt like not it, because I guess I had a picture of something that seemed off. So, like I mentioned, I started just going into the woods, going into the wilderness, just thinking. I started to read books on meditation, on books on just quieting one's mind, and I found a lot of happiness in that. I found there was a lot of blessing in just being able to quiet this noise of the world and sort of go inside. And I discovered that the inside of a person is a very beautiful place. And I remember thinking like, I started to talk to my wife about this. If you see somebody sitting on a bench somewhere, he's not doing anything, he's not on a phone, he's not even reading a book, he's not talking, he's not texting, he's just sitting there. And you walk by with your wife and kids, what's the first thing that you probably tell your family? He's nuts, run away. And I started thinking to myself, why is that? Maybe he's more sane. It could be he's actually nuts.
Right.
But it could be that why don't we give ourselves time to just think about the real questions in life? So that's why later on when I came to yeshiva, I felt like I hit the jackpot because I came to a place where everything is about, let's actually find what is life all about and then start living it. So it started with kind of meditative techniques, deep breathing, looking into yoga, practicing different yoga techniques, and just quieting my mind, quieting the monkey brain, if you will. And I started to just see that there's something happening here, but I didn't know exactly what it was. It was all fresh. And that was sort of the beginning of the journey.
Okay, so at what point did you start questioning other religions that you were like open, I guess, at that point to say, okay, maybe there's some truth in religion?
So I was on this journey and I said, who's got it? Who's got it? I knew there was it. I started to get this feeling that there's got to be some truth to existence. Existence is so beautiful. Existence is so pure. It's so good. There has to be something real. So I started looking. I started really observing also what motivates people. So if there's 1 billion people in the world worshiping a certain thing, and there's people in the Far East making giant statues of a man without clothing on, made out of gold, maybe there's something here. I mean, it's pushing a lot of people. It's pushing human beings into something. What is that? So I started to look into it. I started to look at Far Eastern religions, Zen, the kind of concepts of quietude of the mind, looking into Buddhism, looking into Christianity, into Islam. But the emes, I felt like Yisrael, just searching, just what is it all about? But the emes, there was always a feeling like this isn't it. This isn't it. There's something that's just off, especially all the Avodah Zarah just felt like dirty. It felt something is not right. There was a natural feeling like that. This is not it. Anything which was shrine-based and statue-based, I had this deep feeling like, ich bin a Yid. I'm a Jew, and I don't know what that means yet, but I know that images and graven images, I remember that term in my head as a kid, graven images. Maybe that was something that Sunday school put into me. Graven, I don't even know what whatever a graven image is, stay away from those things. And I had this feeling that there was something unclean about it. But it allowed me to just go around and see, and then very quickly reject and feel like it's not it.
Did you feel that your decisions were, I guess, input in some way tarnished by the fact that you had this Jewish background? So therefore, if you're looking for the truth, the fact that you were brought up, Reformed Judaism, that kind of was a filter that was blocking you from the real truth.
And people always say, they come to yeshiva, they're like, Rabbi, you're like talking about, how Judaism is like what it's all about and the real stuff. But, if we grew up in India, we would say that Hinduism is it. So maybe it's just because we grew up this way, so that this is the narrative that we have. So I said, I went on that journey and I started to ask questions. So this was one of the things, is that I started to ask difficult questions. How can a person be God? It seems a bit strange, meaning isn't God infinite? And how do you limit the infinity into a human being? So I would receive responses like, don't ask questions like that. Or, just moving on, please. And I said, it could be that you're right. I'm talking to let's say some of the chaver in yeshiva. But ask any question you want in yeshiva. Anything you want to talk about. This is a safe space for anything that's on your mind. There's nothing here that's not okay to talk about. And one of the things that people say, oh my goodness, thank you. I never felt I had a space to do that. What's one of the first things, any shir that I'll start, I'll say, Chevra, this is a safe space. Like for real, it's actually a safe space. You can ask me anything you want. There's nothing that's going to be not okay. There's nothing that's going to be not appropriate. If it's something that's bothering you, it might be that we'll talk about it one-on-one. And if I don't know something, I'll tell you. But the Torah wants you to ask questions and wants you to know that we have an unbroken Messiah. And I felt that the difference was that when I came to Torah, where everything else was, don't ask too many questions, I came into Torah and they said, ask me anything you want. And I said, this is something very real about that. Something very real about it, something very honest about that. And I also like the fact that there's one of the guys that came to yeshiva, and he was learning about the story of King David. He wasn't religious at all. He happened to live some far out town somewhere, and he was reading the story of King David. And the story talked about King David's challenges. And he remembers saying, he says, how could it be that the greatest leader of the people seems like he has challenges? And he himself goes through stuff. He said, that's so real. Everything that I was taught about the different priests and angels, they're like too perfect. He said, it has to be there's something real. Any people that will be open and honest about challenges that they go through is something very, very legit to me. He said he made Kiddush that Friday night, he made Havdalah that Motzi Shabbos, and he never looked back since. So I appreciated also just the realness, the honesty when I came to learn Torah.
Is there any bits of truth that you saw in the other religions or the other movements that you say, okay, there is some form of MS over there?
So I was on a search for truth everywhere. Where's the truth? Anywhere. I remember I would go into the forest. My father would teach me a lot of lessons of life. So one of the things that we had a forest that would go to near our house. And I remember he would pick up garbage in the forest. I would think to myself, I'm like this, kid, some stuck-up kid. So, what, that's not our garbage. So my father would say, you have to leave a place nicer than when you found it. So I remember hearing that, and I was like, I respect that. And it was a certain amount of just, later the Torah speaks about nikarim divrei emet. When something is true, it rings with authenticity. A person hears it, they say, that's just real. That makes sense. So I started to pick up things that just resonated. That was also a very important word to me, things resonating deeply with me. Later, I came to see that all of those truths are in the Torah. So I remember there was another experience in college where I went to college in Lakehead University, which is, most of my friends are going to, the regular like party schools. And I decided like, I need to continue this journey. So I went to a place 16 hours northwest of Toronto, basically into a place that people legit live in igloos. And we dog sledded, and I met a lot of Inuit people. And I wanted to know, like, tell me more about life. It was a biology program that also you could learn about leadership. And I liked that. I liked the idea of trying to lead and do things for the world. So I remember speaking to some of the natives there, and they said the following thing. They said, when certain Western people go in to cut down trees, the way they do it is they go into the forest, they cut down the entire mountain. You know why? Because they're going to make big dollar, and they're going to try to replant the forest, but it's not going to really grow so properly. And oftentimes, because it's not biodiversity, it's going to get overrun with pests and stuff. So they make a lot of money because they think about one generation. When we go into the forest, we see two trees growing next to each other. One's going to choke out the other tree. We harvest that tree. We take a tree. We need trees. We want to build stuff. We want paper. We want stuff. We want to build table. The other tree, now that it's not being choked out, survives. We would have lost both trees. We save a tree, we get a tree, we make the forest even stronger than before, because when we go into the forest, we don't think about one generation, we think about 1,000 generations. I remember thinking about that. I just said, I hear that. I hear that there's something about thinking about the future. And I remember when I learned the Gemara, which spoke about someone seeing somebody eating carobs. And he was planting a carob tree. And he said to this person, he said, why are you planting a carob tree? It takes 70 years for it to grow. You're never going to be alive to eat those carobs. So he says, yeah, but I'm planting this for my kids. They're going to have carobs. And the carobs that I'm eating, it's because my father planted a carob tree. So now I'm eating carobs. And I came to this feeling of there's got to be something true about hemsheichius, continuity. What I later came to understand is the great secret of Jewish destiny, of that this is a very long story that we're a part of. And I wanted to connect to the truths that would connect to a very long story.
And you don't have to answer this if you don't feel comfortable. Were you ever very close to becoming part of another religion?
So there was one time, I was never close, I never signed any dotted lines. There was one time that I was in college, and they saw that I was like an open kind of thinking, looking for truth type of a person, I guess. So some of the Muslim chevra, they came over to me and they said, we can show you about, prayer. And I said, I knew that they're talking to God. And I said, okay, you could show me a little bit. At a certain point, it didn't take too long, maybe about 2 10-minute sessions. They made some type of a Beis Din and some equivalent, and they came to me and they said, so you accept Islam. So I was thinking to myself, is that easy? And I remember thinking something awakened inside of me at that moment. And I didn't have the full language of it, but it's Ich bin a Yid. I know that I'm a Jew, and I just can't do this. There's something that I know something is pure. And I remember later thinking a lot about this concept of Jews going into situations and otherwise that they would have bent their values to things. There's many stories about Hashem Yirachem, the war, and people who were forced with that ultimate ultimatum of convert or die. And, in the camps, there were people that were not religious. And they said, bow down to this idol or we're going to take your life. And I remember thinking at this moment, I was like, wouldn't it make sense? And you have people in the camp that are like, Chaim Yankel, you weren't even religious. And all of a sudden he says, I can't do this. I can't do this. And the Balatanya talks about this and other Sfarim, that when a Jew is met with such a challenge to who he is, the core of who we are, the truth that we're a Jew, something awakens and says, I just can't do this. So there was this feeling of I can't do this. This is not me. Ich bin a Yid. Thank you, but no thank you.
Wow. Okay. Very close. We'll be right back to this week's episode. But first, let me tell you about my SUCCOS last year. I had a great SUCCOS last year. And part of it all started off because I had an incredible shopping experience when it came to buy my ESROG and Lulav and etc. I used Sricshopper.com. They were unbelievable. It was my first time using them. It is a unbelievable website that it's more than a website. They're a brand, they're a company that makes the process of buying an esrog and lulav, dasam rav, etc. When I say esrog and lulav, the whole package, they make the process so easy. And I personally have struggled with finding a good lulav and esrog. When I was younger, my father just got it for me. I had no clue what I was getting, and I got it. When I went to Israel, I was on my own. I was looking through the shuk, dealing, handling. Am I getting ripped off? Is this even kosher? Is this going to last more than 3 days, or it's going to like turn brown in like 2 days? Very difficult experience. Even when I got back here to America, there's so much going on. Sricshopper.com, since 2017, they have an amazing website. And honestly, every single year, the website just gets easier and easier to use. So whether you're looking for a specific brand, a specific color, hey, I want to make sure my esrog fits in my box. Here's the diameters of my box. Whatever it is, they make the process so easy. It's so easy to use. And more importantly, their customer service is, and I think Moshiach would come if all companies had their customer service. They really care. You could chat with them and you could really ask the questions that you have to find the perfect esrog and lulav for you. And even if you're like, hey, I don't even know what I want, they have an option. Just pick for me. But you could get it checked by the Rabbanim. It's unbelievable. They ship it to you. My experience last year was amazing. I got my lulav and esrog actually well before my family and my in-laws. And they're like, hey, where'd you get that? Like, that's unbelievable. You probably paid like $700 for that. And I'm like, actually, no, this cost way less. And they're like, I paid double the amount of money and your esrog is beautiful. The only downside of Sricshopper is people are going to come to you in shul and be jealous of your esrog. So heads up, that's going to happen. But the jokes aside, actually may happen, but jokes aside, Sricshopper.com is unbelievable. But just alone from the customer service and the ease of use and how amazing they are, if that's not it, if you're not satisfied, 100% guarantee money back if you are not happy with the product. And they really stand by their product and their service, and they're unbelievable. So I know it's a little early, but maybe you're watching this a little closer towards SUCCOS. But honestly, you could be like me. I ordered mine this past Tuesday. So you could go ahead and order. Obviously, it's not coming tomorrow. I ordered it for a specific date. You could come, right before Yom Tov. It could come a week before Yom Tov. They're amazing, and it comes back. And in case you're worried, maybe it's going to ship it to me. It's going to get ruined. 100% money back guarantee, or they'll replace it. They're unbelievable. Go ahead and use them. But not only that, Inspiration for the Nation listeners or Living L'Chaim listeners, you are going to get 5% off. You're going to use the code word LL5. Put in the promo code LL5. You're going to get 5% off your order. But most importantly, you're going to have the happiest SUCCOS you've ever had, hopefully. And the part that's going to be, I can guarantee you a happy SUCCOS, but I'm going to guarantee you a very happy lulav and esrog, and it's going to make your SUCCOS that much better. Now back to this week's episode. So at what point did you have that coming home situation? I don't know if it was in an instant. I don't know if it was gradual, but how did you become who you are right now? So it's just, I wish we had like 9 or 10 hours or a week or two together to go through everything. There's so many pieces along the way. This search of just like, what is it all about, continued. It didn't stop. And the fires only became more alive inside of me. In the middle of college, I was offered to go on a Birthright Trip. It was one of the first trips that they offered. And I remember thinking like, it's unbelievable. Like somebody is shelling out money for me to come to Israel for free. I started thinking like, who are these Jews? Like somebody must love me out there. Like the Jewish people must be awesome because someone's just paying, and not just me. There's like tons of people coming on free trips. And this was right at the beginning. So I remember having just these very positive vibes. Like, the Jews are good. There's something going on here. But it was also not stimming. It wasn't exactly relating to everything I experienced. But I knew something's happening. And I was offered to come. And I wouldn't say the trip was the most religious experience. Birthright brought me to the land. And I remember hearing stories that like the Holy Land. I'd never been to Israel before. I was
I was 20 years old. And I remember hearing that people would come to the land and they would kiss the ground. I remember there was such a thing. And I don't know what came over me, but we got off the flight. I remember I smelled the air of Eretz Yisrael for the first time. Avir Da'aretz. I remember I got very emotional. There was something that just came over me. I naturally just, maybe I was more tapped into emotions. I felt, I started tearing up. I'm on the flight. Also, I remember people clapped when we got down. They didn't clap when I'd come into New York, but they clapped when I got into Ben Gurion. And I remember I just got very emotional. I remember seeing yarmulkes everywhere. That also did something to me. It touched me. I'm coming like the Jewish land. My head was like, I'm coming to the Jewish land. And it was in the olden days where they used to get off on the tarmac. We'd walk down I just kissed the ground. It was like asphalt. I don't even know what it was. I don't know. I felt like I'm home. I felt like this is me. And the whole Birthright Trip was essentially go to party as much as you can, go to clubs, play that funny ping pong game on the beach. And that was a bit like The Outsider. Like I was on this spiritual journey. I was doing yoga. At that point, I was only eating raw foods, which is the whole story into itself. And I wasn't into the party. So I was sort of like different. I was like, we're in the Holy Land. Like there's something, like what's it all about? I remember we were staying at, maybe it's the Prima Kings. It's in Yerushalayim. It's a hotel, maybe a 15-minute walk from the old city. And we go to the Kaisel for the first time. I come to the Western Wall and I'm just crying. I don't know what it is. I remember hearing from a kid, like there's this place, the Wailing Wall. It's like, and there's notes and I'm overwhelmed. At that point, you can't explain these things. This is just the rawness of the Jewish soul experiencing. We talked about emes. It's just experiencing just truth. You're slamming up to something true, but you don't know how to explain it. And I go to the Western Wall. We go back to the hotel. That night, they're like partying and whatever, and you're not allowed to leave the hotel. It's like a very set thing. I had this feeling that I just have to get back to the Western Wall. I don't know what it is. I sneak out of the place. This is before Mamilla was built. It's like just open tear. I just run to the Western Wall. I go to the Western Wall. It's like, I don't know, 11 at night. I just lie down in front of the wall. I remember hearing a story that Yaakov Avinu he goes to sleep by the Western Wall. And he has this dream of the Sulam Mutzavarza and Malachim. And it's like this, and I don't know what it is, but I just feel like this is my home. My forefathers were here. So I just lie down at the West Wall. I'm not woken up by angels, but I'm woken up by security personnel. Like, what are you doing just sleeping at the wall here? They're like, what are you doing? I don't know. I just had to come to the wall. They realize that I'm harmless. They send me back to the hotel. And something happened on this trip that started to like move me. Birthright ends. I decide that I have to extend my trip. I knew there was such a thing of hiking across the land of Israel. At that time, I was only eating raw foods, which was itself a whole journey of trying to find truth. I got a degree in science and nutrition, and I was practicing as a nutritionist. And I saw that there was a mahalach in just eat raw foods, meaning totally pure, fresh, no meats and stuff generally. At least I wasn't having. And I just felt my body becoming lighter and lighter and more spiritually open. So I'm just in the Holy Land. I'm just eating only raw foods. I'm like meditating all the time. And I decide I need to just walk across the land of Israel. So I don't have so much time, but for about 3 weeks, I just start walking the land. I go up to the north of Israel. I'm just walking across the land. I'm sleeping just in avocado groves and just experiencing the land. I go down. I take a bus at one point down to the south. At that point also, I feel like I have to go into, cross over into Egypt, experience Sinai. I just felt the desert was like this very amazing place. It was this quiet place where my mind could think. So I remember it's the end of my trip. I'm going back to college. I'm sitting on the beach for 50 cents a day. You can have you live like a king in some hut with watermelon galore. And I remember having this feeling like, I got to be back in Yerushalayim. I don't know. I've only got a few days left. I need to go back to Yerushalayim. It's something that's like, this is nice and all, but there's a deeper calling in Yerushalayim. Come back to Yerushalayim. I put my stuff in one of the hostels in the Arab Shuk. A lot of the hostels had a deal that you could pay like $2 and you have a room inside the hostel. You pay $1 for the roof of the hostel. And I'm living on the roof of the hostel. I'm hearing the call to prayer in my ear, like literally right in my ear, 4 a.m. And for a day or two, I'm just living there. I go down to the Kaisel. I have like 2 days left of my trip. I'm just like all in white, just breathing in God, whatever that meant, connecting. And I get a tap on my shoulder. I look around. It's a very religious, Orthodox looking man with a long white beard, a black hat. I'm thinking like, why are they wearing, so much clothing and woolen clothing in the middle of the summer? It's like very, very hot. And this person says to me, he says, "Are you a Jew?" So I say, "Yes, I am." He says, "Well, you should go to yeshiva." So I say, "What's yeshiva?" He says, "Let me take you." So of course, this is Rav Meir Schuster, a blessed memory. And I think I was one of the last people that he tapped on the shoulder.
Wow.
And he got sick shortly thereafter. You never know. You mamish never know. He tapped me on the shoulder. I'm saying, pshuta kamashma. He tapped me on the shoulder with just love in his eyes. He said, "Let me just take you." He walks me up to the Men's Heritage House, which he was running. He's like, "Grab your stuff." I walk into the Men's Heritage House. I don't know what hits me. People are offering me food. They're offering me this. Here's a bed. I'm like, like, how much do I pay? They're like, "Don't even worry about that. We got you." Like, who are these Jews? Like, they just care. Now, the way that the hostels work, they're very smart because we give you a free place to stay for the night, but then in the morning, like, go do something with your life. So I say, 9 o'clock, we're locking the doors. You got to get out of here. Anybody want to come to a free breakfast? So Rabbi Schuster says, "Let me take you. We got breakfast." Of course, they take us down to the dining room in Aish HaTorah. And for anybody who knows Aish HaTorah, you would never expect what we had. It was cucumbers, tomatoes, cottage cheese. Nowadays, we even get eggs and even higher level stuff. And cereal. And I go down and have breakfast. And then somebody comes in and says, "Do you want to learn some Jewish wisdom?" I said, I never knew the Jews had so much wisdom. Like, I know the Jews are great people. And I remember coming to a class. The first class was of Stu Schwartz. And he gave this amazing class. And I remember just thinking, like, I don't even remember the content of the class now. But I remember thinking, I'm sitting there like, there was something that had some depth here. Back to back, the next person that walks in I didn't know who it was. It looked like a rabbi. He had long, side locks. He was wearing a bike helmet, bike shoes, carrying a knapsack, with a very deep, beautiful voice. He takes off his shoes with a tissue, which I was wondering about. I later came to realize that we don't want to touch our shoes because it creates a certain amount of tumah. Puts on some nice dress shoes, takes out a bottle of freshly squeezed organic juice, it looked like, makes this blessing, and then proceeds to say, "Okay, Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Who wants to talk about life? Want to talk about challenges? Want to talk about drugs? You want to talk about surfing?" Of course, this is Rabbi Yom Tov Glazer. And I just like, who is this Rav? I'm like, you're my type of person. Like, I didn't know this was available. I didn't know you could talk about these things. And the entire schmooze was just so real. It was so much like, let's talk about what's going on. And then that was probably 50 minutes. And then after we created like this space of context, of communication, the last 10 minutes was the most beautiful Torah and takeaway lessons about how to make your life better. And I just said, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. I remember that Shabbos. And at the end of the class, he came over to me and he's like, "Come for Shabbos." I was like, "What do you mean? Like, we just like met. Like, what do you mean, come for Shabbos?" He hands me a card from his pocket. You never know. Hands me a card from his pocket. It was a map to his house. And it just said, Aish HaTorah, Rabbi Yom Tov Glazer, "Come for Shabbos." And Shabbos was spelled Shabbos. I'm like, what's Shabbos? Like, where am I? And he said, yeah, come, Shabbos day, come, 1:00, just come to the address. It's like, yeah, like I could bring a friend, like bring whoever you want. It's like, this is unbelievable. Where am I? What planet am I on? I remember that Shabbos. I keep the whole Shabbos just by default. I have to give a tremendous thank you also to Jeff Seidel, who that Friday night set us up. I was just amazed. He's like, yeah, oh, you're going here, you're going there. A beautiful family in Mea Sharim just takes me in. This lovely Suda makes me feel like I'm part of the home. Shabbos day I go to Rabbi Yom Tov's. I just feel just so much. I've come home. There was one Maisa I remember at that meal, which I still tell over to the Talmidim a lot. And it's maybe relevant now more than ever. So Kanei Nahar Rabbi Yom Tov has Kinderlach, has a lot of kids. And there was Kinderlach. One was on this lap and one was on this one. And then one's like on his strimel and they're all like Tati. It's like very active. Another one pops out. Kanei Nahar should have a lot of nachas, Rabbi Yom Tov. So there was like a lady at the table that like sort of said like, Rabbi, will you forgive me if I say, and I'm so sorry, like, have you ever thought about like, like, like overpopulation? So I remember like I dropped my fork and without missing a beat. So he's like, my holy sister, when you're bringing problems into the world, you want to limit them as much as possible. But when you're bringing solutions into the world, you want to bring as many solutions into the world as you possibly can. And I remember being like, oh my goodness. It happens to be this lady is now from Mea Sharim with 15 kids. I'm just kidding.
That's like the book ending. That's incredible. Wow. Was there pushback from your parents as you were getting more Orthodox?
So I saw if the Torah is true, it has to be that it's true at every single level. It has to be that it means that you will be balanced, that you'll be healthy at every single level. So I saw that it must be, if the Torah says love your parents, it must really mean that the highest level of human consciousness is that you love your parents. So I tried very, very hard. There's always a certain excitement of Baalei Tshuva and a fire that comes with it that has to be tamed in a certain way. But I tried very, very hard to just be extra loving. And my family has been so supportive every single step of the way. I'm tremendously close to them. We visit, they come here. I have one brother, him and I are super tight. And they have been an amazing part of the journey.
That's really
beautiful. I love them tremendously.
That's really beautiful because so often that when someone becomes more observant, their family kind of takes it, and they're not even trying to make it personal, but the family takes it personally. Like, okay, if you're becoming more observant, that means therefore we feel like we're doing something wrong, or you make us feel like we're doing something wrong.
I always try to make it that I love you no matter what. There's always a feeling that when somebody goes on a path of Torah, that Jews have souls. All of humanity has a soul. The Jew, though, has a special soul deeply connected to Torah. And therefore, when a person sees somebody who's more connected, there's a natural feeling like, I know deep down that this is mine also. And therefore, there is a natural tension.
I guess Jewish guilt in a certain way.
There is.
Right.
There's a natural, like, I know I should be doing this. So I tried very, very hard to just be as just loving, down to earth, fun, do all the fun things possible, do all the same fun things I would do with my family, and just be that loving, devoted son.
That's really incredible. Okay, so could you give us some tips about, I guess, your experience with nutrition? I mean, you mentioned you're eating just raw food. Do you only eat raw food still?
I don't.
Okay.
There's quite a funny story that on that Birthright Trip, actually no, it wasn't that Birthright Trip, it was the secondary trip that happened afterwards. I was still on the raw food thing. There's so much to this whole long story. I came back subsequently on another trip with Or Sameach. I basically went back, finished college, and was invited back to come on a trip. I thought, like, I'm working, I'm doing things, like, I know that there's something about the Torah, but like, I'm busy. And I ended up coming on the trip, and to make a long story short, and there's so many parts along the journey, I realized then that something was happening here. So I remember I was at one of my dear Rebbes who helped me at that time tremendously, his home, Rabbi Yerucham Goldwasser. So he had like this mishmar type of thing. And we're all there. And I remember like there was candles everywhere and there was rabbis playing music. And I was like, this is also nice. Like I didn't know that we had this. I always loved music. I played a lot of music growing up. And he played, there was music, and all of a sudden like these steaming bowls start coming out. And I was with a bunch of my buddies from Toronto that knew that like I was totally doing raw foods, 6 years going, feeling that high kind of just light nutritional experience. So all of a sudden these bowls are coming around. It was pretty obvious that it was filled with fleishik and meat. I don't know what came over to me. Like one of them, my buddy Nico is his name. He's like, like pass the bowl. And I was like, I'm not passing the bowl. I don't know what it was. At that moment, I just felt this is it. This is the health food right now. And I remember he's like, why don't you pass? It was all dark, candles. He's like, why don't you pass in the bowl? And he sees me like look at the stuff, at the fleishiks. He's like, no, you're not going to do this. I'm like, oh yeah. I go in, I eat the fleishiks. It was the best, cholent I ever had in my life. And I haven't looked back since. But as far as the health food tips.
Well, first of all, hold on. I just want to interrupt. I think you may be the first person in history to like not touch meat or just non-raw foods for 6 years and break it on Cholent. Like, I don't know if anyone in existence could say that.
My very, very dear friend, Rabbi Dr, who's been a chavrus of mine for a life, and we came to yeshiva at the same time, he always says a thing like Cholent is so dense. It's, unless you eat it on Shabbos, it's almost like it's impossible. Like it can't be integrated. It's only the spirituality of the fact that it's on Shabbos that you can integrate such thick, dense food into your system. A lot of people still ad hayom hazeh, they'll call, they want nutrition tips, and I find that the Torah is very, very into be healthy. Ushmartem me'od lenafsho seichem, be healthy. People know they feel better when they're healthy. So one of my first tips is eat healthy, but not so healthy that you become unhealthy. Meaning you have to eat healthy, but not so much that you become so boxed in that, but I wish I could have it, but I'll do it anyways. Eating is a psychological, it's emotional. There's a lot of different, it's physical, there's a lot of different things that go into it. So one thing I would say, just make basic healthy choices. There's so many good things available nowadays. Make time to speak to somebody. Most people need more water in their system, more green food in their system. Green juice is very good, but also counting calories is usually bad because everything becomes like a mind game. Like, should I be doing this? Should I not? It's 1 calorie. Go into eating in just a healthy frame of mind. Make generally healthy decisions. You'll feel good. Add a few super foods, like super nutritional foods into the diet. You'll feel good. Just balance. Be a balanced person. Say Birthright Trip when you eat. Eat around good friends. Eat in a way that makes you feel uplifting. Eat with your wife. Try to have dinners every night with your wife. Eat with your kids. Try to sit down with them as much as you can. It's a busy world out there. Make eating not something which is on the run, but something which is, we sit down and eat. The Jews are very special. It's something that a lot of times when I speak to the new guys, we just had a group of Mashadi boys, some very, very chashuva guys in Aish HaTorah now. And so we're talking about Shabbos. We're talking about the beauty of Shabbos. And we're explaining that, I was asking, what's Shabbos? What's Shabbos? What's Shabbos? And people give different answers. Day you rest, day this. And I said, imagine you have a person, he's building a chair. He's building a chair. He's one of the best chair builders you ever met. He puts all the fine detailing into the chair. It's strong, it's sturdy. And for 6 days, the guy's building the chair. And then comes the 7th day and he's still building the chair. And his wife looks at him like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm building a chair. You need chairs, right? You need chairs in this world. She's like, I know, but like, why don't you stop building and just sit down on the chair and talk to me? And I said, Shabbos is the day we stop building chairs and we just sit with our loved ones. And I said, isn't it romantic that the Jews have a candle-lit dinner every Friday night? Who does that in the world nowadays? Nobody does that. And all the guys are like, oh my goodness, I didn't even think about that. It's romantic. We stop and we spend time with loved ones. That type of eating is so healthy. So eat in a way that's healthy, that's with loved ones, that you slow down, chew your food. Now, maybe we'll do a whole shir one day just on nutrition tips. There's so much to be said, but just balance and try to make healthy choices.
It's so interesting because I don't really hear too many people talking about food in the way you're talking about it in the Frum world, because
it's Cholent and Kugel. That's the diet.
It's that, and also I think everything is getting, and we could maybe talk about Moshiach coming, but like I feel like a lot of things are getting very exaggerated. So like recently I saw like a burger that has gold on it and a kosher restaurant that's worth a lot of money. Like we're getting very the
burgers
meat
are
boards.
Gold. People have diamonds in their foreheads nowadays.
Right.
Things are very exaggerated.
So and the fact that you're talking about, I guess, making food part of a spiritual experience as well, right, is a breath of fresh air.
We have so many halachas in Shulchan Aruch around eating. There's so much consciousness that you could bring to eating. Eating brings people together. When you hang out with somebody, you bring out food, there's an immediate bond of people eating, right? The Jews, we eat. There's so much that we can elevate when it comes to eating. There's a big thing in the whole, especially by the Chassidic world. The Baal Shem Tov brought this light into the world where it's very clear that Chassidim have this idea that you go and you see holy people eat. You see the way that great people eat. You see that it's like this spiritual experience. And the way that I describe it to people is like Shabbos. How should you eat on Shabbos? The best food, the best drink, the best everything. Because Hashem wants you to enjoy it. I say, but imagine you go to the party of the king. There's the king, and the king puts out nice stuff. You're at the king's palace, the fanciest everything. Does the king want you to enjoy everything? What do you say, Yaakov?
Of course.
Pashat, enjoy everything.
Have fun.
But what is the one thing the king wants you to do while you're enjoying? He says, just remember you're at my party. If you go off to the side doing your own thing, like as if to say like you left the king's presence, the king is like, this wasn't about me. This is like, you're just doing your own thing. So we have to fix the way that we look at eating and drinking and Shabbos. We have to fix the way that we look at healthy pleasures on Shabbos. There's no problem with drinking on Shabbos. But if a person is drinking without the king, that's a problem. He has to drink with the king. How does he do that? Is there Divrei Torah? Is he singing? Is he making sure that his friend also has? Is he inviting people into his home? Are they talking about the king? Is this a Suda where Hashem is part of the family? I was speaking to our Rashi, Rabbi Dr, and he was very, very favorable. He said, it's very nice just to come and speak to Yaakov.
Oh, wow.
And Baruch Hashem. And I said, Rebbe, what should I speak about? He said, just talk about Hashem. He said, everyone needs to know that Hashem is part of the family. Bring Hashem into your home. Shabbos is the day that Hashem is right here in your home. It's close. Talk about Hashem at the Shabbos table. That will make all the eating filled with so much meaning. So that's a very, very big message. The world of eating is spiritual. And the Jews, we have to bring that to the world. We have to bring back consciousness. Our mission to the world is to bring consciousness to every sphere of existence. And the world is looking at the Jewish people now more than ever. Every headline is about the Jews. The world is looking to the Jewish people. We have a very big achrayus and responsibility to be symbols of being princes of the king, to carry ourselves in a way of dignity on every level. The way we eat, the way we talk, the way we compose ourselves, the way we do business. Everything has to be with absolute midos, with character, with refinement, and making a Kiddush Hashem.
Really beautiful. Okay, so before we get to the end questions, I know there's a lot to talk about. I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about A, Moshiach coming, and then B...
Should be today, Yaakov.
Yes,
B'ezrat Hashem.
That'd be amazing. And also B, I want to talk about the fact that you're still by Aish HaTorah and the shifts that you've seen within Aish HaTorah since you started there with that tap on the shoulder. So Moshiach coming. Could you tell us about it?
We're only going to know everything when it mamish happens.
Right.
But if somebody tells you, do you believe Mashiach's coming? And do you believe that he's going to come, today? You have to say yes. That the Jewish answer is, we want him to come right now. And we believe that he could come right now. And we have to live with that anticipation, that we're yearning, that we're anticipating. We're not anticipating like we're sitting at a bus stop. I hope the bus is going to come in a few minutes. I look at the sign, it's going to come in a few. No, we're talking about we're actively bringing Moshiach. Moshiach, it's actually an interesting topic because when Moshiach comes, we're going to lose a certain amount of free will. Yom she'ein be'em chayfetz. We're going to not have the same level of free will. Moshiach is called a Pele Yoyetz. Pele Yoyetz means he's going to be a wondrous advisor. He's going to be like the greatest Rebbe that we ever met. He's going to be the biggest tzaddik. He's going to have Torah. He's going to be from the lineage of David HaMelech. And he's going to be a great Bal Eitzah. He's going to be a Pele Yoyetz. He's going to be able to guide every person. So someone would come to Mashiach. And this is one of the first questions that they ask us in Shemayim. We should have long lives, Bezrat Hashem. In Shemayim, they're going to ask us, were you anticipating Mashiach? Were you imagining what it's going to look like? So one of the things I tell people is like, imagine you go to Mashiach, and let's say you're struggling with anger, and you've been working on it, and you ask Mashiach, like, help me with this. And he gives you the best advice, where it becomes so obvious now that you can't get angry. He completely came to you, deep within you, and he gave you direction on how to fix yourself. And he's going to start guiding humanity where free will is going to be systematically lost. Because it's going to be so obvious that Torah and mitzvahs is everything. So we're anticipating that very, very much. Mashiach means there's going to be peace in the world. There's so much strife. So this is also something that people think like, oh my goodness, now is the time that I have free will. Like, I don't want Mashiach to come. Like, I'm going to lose the merit of my free will. But I say, you can't be cruel. When Mashiach comes, there's going to be peace in the world. You can't say that I want to have free will and get more merit, but, the world will still be a mess. No, we have to say, I'm going to do everything I can now while I still have free will. But my goodness, I want that the world should come to its shleimus. The world should come to perfection. It's going to be peace for humanity. Could you imagine? All the countries in the world are going to have peace. It's important to think about that. All the countries, no more war.
Isn't it like, I saw like maybe in Medrash that even animals, like lions won't be eating sheep. Like there won't be concept of machlekes or fighting or
that's right.
Doggy world.
Imagine how beautiful that's going to be. I mean, there'll be peace. People are going to come to their highest potential. A major thing that we're into and that we want to share with the world is every single one of us is here with a mission. You're here with a mission, Yaakov. I'm here with a mission. And Hashem is going to ask us after 120 years, were you the best Moshe Chaim ben Shendel Esther that you could be in this world? Like they said to Reb Zusha. They said, Zusha, he said, they're not going to ask me if I was the best Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. He said, was I Zusha? So I want to be the best Moshe Chaim. And we're here to bring out all of our talents. And anybody that comes into our yeshiva and anybody that we meet across the world, our message for the world is we want you to be the best version of yourself. When Mashiach comes, that's all going to be unleashed. This is a very, very exciting time, is that people are going to be helping each other. We're all going to be on the same team. It's very exciting. Like, no more machlokes. We're all working towards a common goal. A lot of times I'll tell people, imagine people you grew up with. So close your eyes. Imagine people you grew up with doing all sorts of things. They're going to put on tefillin. The non-Jews in the world are also going to be running to learn Torah. I always tell people, imagine LeBron James. He calls you up. He says, please teach me some Mishnayos. Just give me some of this Torah stuff. I need it. I need the wisdom. And the Jewish people have always been Or LaGoyim. We're here to be the light to the nations. And we have to be ready now already that we're giving the right message because the world is looking to us. And the message is that Hashem is here for humanity. We want to bring Hashem to the entire world. The times of Mashiach is going to be such a beautiful time. It's going to be unbelievable. And whatever Mashiach's time is only a taste of what the world to come is. The world to come is Ein La'irasa Lakim Zulasecha. We don't even know what that's going to be. It's going to be so beautiful. So we're getting ready for big things here. It's very big things here. Now is the time. Use your free will. Choose Torah. Choose. Oftentimes I'll tell people, why? A person says, I don't respect myself. I don't feel good about myself. So I'll say, stop doing the things that make you disrespect yourself. Start making the free will decisions that make you feel good about yourself, that make you feel big in this world. The Torah has the answers.
Really beautiful. Really beautiful. We'll be right back this week's episode. 2 more very quick messages for you, and I will tell you how your life will be enhanced. First off, you look as good as you feel, and I feel great, so hopefully I look good. It's weird if I say that about myself, but I've been feeling really great lately, and that's because I've been wearing Twilery. It's a company that I've literally been wearing for the past more than 5 years at this point. I spoke in previous episodes about how my mother got me their pants, and I have it for over 5 years, and my last birthday told her to get me Twilery pants. But more importantly than that, their clothing, every year they step it up, and right now I'm wearing, if you're not watching, I don't know what I'll do. You'll just hear me talk about how amazing they are. I'm wearing their unbelievable polo. I'm wearing, if you saw in the past few episodes, I've been rocking their blazer. They have unbelievable pants, polos, shirts. I just ordered socks from them. I'm getting a suit from them very soon. They have this amazing ear blazer. The point is, if you are a man, you want to feel good. If you're a woman and you want your father or your husband or your child to look good, your teenage child to look good, go ahead and get Twilery. Their clothing is something that lasts, and I think that's so valuable. There's so many times clothing that you buy it and then it's gone in 3 months. So there goes that, but their clothing actually lasts. And if you are an Inspiration for the Nation listener, you're going to get $18 off when you spend $139. So it's for new customers only. Spend $139 to get $18 off. You're going to use the code word INSPIRE. Yep, cheesy, but it works. Use code word INSPIRE and you're going to get $18 off when you spend over $139. Use it quick. I think the promo code is going to run out soon, but you're going to hear a lot more about Twilery, and each week I'm going to focus on a different article of clothing of why my wife loves them and also why I love them so much. But I also want to tell you about how you could, right after this podcast, go ahead, obviously go and buy your Esser from Sricshopper. Go ahead and buy your next, Rosh Hashanah suit from Twilery, or shirt for Yom Kippur, or weekday pants, whatever it is. But I want to tell you about the Good Faith Effort podcast. You heard me talking about them. It's so hard for me these days to listen to any of my podcasts. I honestly listen to a lot of podcasts because I've been in this space for so long that I'm like nitpicky. And when I tell you I enjoy a podcast, I think there's volume there. There's something there because I'm in the space. And Rivari is the host of Good Faith Effort podcast. And I say, thank God no one's comparing us, because he's a way better host at podcasting than I am. And each week, or each episode, I should say, he brings out the most incredible guests. Sometimes people you never heard of. Sometimes people you're like, wait a second, is that the guy from the famous film Groundhog Day? What? I didn't know he's Jewish. And like you could see when Rivari is interviewing him, there's like art scroll Svarim or Gemaras in the background, and it's fascinating. He's back. They went on a little hiatus, but Good Faith Effort podcast is back. It is such a diverse show. It's like some people always tell me, like, isn't it weird for you to advertise for other shows? No, these shows are so different than my show, and they bring such a beautiful insight into Judaism that my show's not doing. So they just had Stephen Tobolowsky. I didn't know that was his name. I just know he was the guy with the glasses from Groundhog Day, from the Bible to Groundhog Day. I didn't finish the episode yet, but so far so great. And he also last week had Joshua Berman, how the Bible revolutionized politics, and so many other, the spirituality of Bob Dylan. That was a great episode. Rainn Wilson, why we need a spiritual revolution. It's so diverse. Not every episode is going to be talking to a Jew. It's going to be talking to a non-Jew and how they bring in spirituality or the Torah basically into their life. It's fascinating. It's different. It's unique. Good Faith Effort podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast. And now back to this week's episode. Well, so I want to like last before the final questions, ask you about, is it funny for you that you entered into Aish HaTorah as a student and now you're a Rebbe there, and you're kind of seeing the people that were in your shoes? That experience is probably funny.
So it's very beautiful to me because it just feels real. Like oftentimes we'll see people who, let's say, who are addicts, and they recover. They are the best people to help addicts because they can give people chizuk. Like, I was with you, bro. I went through things that you went through. So I do feel like it's very natural. And I feel blessed. I'm so thankful to Aish HaTorah. I'm so thankful to Rabbi Noach Weinberg, Zatzal, for instilling in me something so big. When I first read Rabbi Noach, he was bigger than life. He was already sick. It was the last few years of his life. And I remember being in his office, and he was like commanding. It was like he was the command center. It's like, find me 10 ideas to save the Jewish people. And, we're all like, okay. And then we'd come back and he said, I thought of all your ideas. Do more. I remember I told Rabbi Glazer, I said, Rabbi Noach is very serious. Like he's living with this. And I remember just being so like, I felt I was in the Jewish destiny at that moment. Like it's happening here. Like this is it. This is, don't want to be on the sidelines. There was somebody I was just speaking to the Shabbos who said, like, Rebbe, one of the reasons why I became religious is I just started learning more about like the Jews and how the Jewish destiny is that we're part of something so big. And I realized I don't want to be on the sidelines of this. I want to be part of the story. So Rabbi Noach made you feel like you were in it. And he would say things like this. You'd be in his office and he would say to you like, can you save the world, Yaakov? Save the Jewish people. So what would you say?
I guess so. I'm not really so sure.
So what do you say? Can you lift up your finger? Can you lift your finger like this?
Yeah, I can lift my finger.
You say, Apikoris! Apikoris, what do you mean? Rebbe, like, I went to yeshiva, like, I'm a religious guy. What are you talking about? I said, what do you mean? To lift your finger, you can do yourself. As if to say that Hashem is not helping you. But when it comes to the Jewish people, now you think that that's you that's doing that? Meaning to say, like, if Hashem is not helping, you can't lift your finger. Which means if Hashem is helping you, you can't save the Jewish people. And I remember just thinking like, oh my goodness, he's so right. He's so right. So this was put in me, this feeling of achrayus. Our Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Berkowitz, is carrying this torch. Within the first week, I remember the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Berkowitz, coming into the yeshiva. Behind him is a map of the world. As big as this wall, a map of the world. A bit of an interesting thing to have in Rosh Yeshiva's office. And on the map is different numbers. And at a certain point, we all looked closer and there was numbers. And we said to the Rosh Yeshiva, like, oh, what are these numbers? They're numbers of Jews in different places. The ones in Botswana always get to me when I'm in the office, and Uganda. They're numbers of Jews. And we asked Rosh Yeshiva, like, it's a bit of an interesting thing, like, but like, what's with the map element? He's like, it's a war map. We're at war with the world. Not obviously a physical war, chas v'shalom, but we're in a war of assimilation. We're losing Jews. And we have to see that if a father has a child who goes away, the father's not going to give any resources possible to help somebody bring his son home. So we're trying to bring everybody home. This is the Tikka B'Shofar Gadol. This is the Kibbutz Galius. And we're seeing it. People are coming home now. Chabad is doing amazing things. Everyone's doing their job. You're doing amazing things. We're trying to unify all the Jews around the world under one common goal. Hashem Echad. So the feeling of coming to yeshiva, of going through that experience, it felt very natural. I was in yeshiva. I just felt like I felt at home there. And I felt that I had a place that I can grow and learn. After being there for a couple of years, I went to the Mir. I spent 6 years in the Mir. But my Rabbi Yol said, always good to stay in yeshiva, stay in Aish HaTorah. It's very, very good things happening there. So I'd go to the Mir basically from morning till night, come back, hang out with some of the guys, give a few chaburas at night, and then sleep in the dorms, and then go back to the Mir. Then I got married, and I stayed in the Mir. And then always staying in Aish HaTorah, doing chaburas, and then eventually I became a night seder Rebbe, and just integrated into more full-time working there. I have tremendous thankfulness to Rav David Rassman and everybody in Aish HaTorah who always believed in me. Rabbi Rassman specifically believed in me that when I came about 10 years ago and I said, I want to be a moil. So he said, like, it's not an easy thing to break in. But I think he saw that I was good-hearted about it. So he sent me to one of his friends, Rav Simcha Fold, who helped me tremendously. And I just pursued it. I had a place in the yeshiva that I could go and grow. And I feel now there's also an achrayus. I just want to give back to the next generation and just help build the next generation of Jewish families to see success for all of them.
So I usually ask people what's their favorite mitzvah, and I think you're alluding to...
So there's a lot of mitzvahs. The Gemara talks about when the Amoraim would speak about mitzvahs, and they would ask their, Avuch mazar tfei, your father, which mitzvah was he more careful in? So what do you mean? They were careful in all the mitzvahs, but time of the Amoraim. So Zohar also means like light, like Zohar. What shined for him? What was a mitzvah that was like, because all of us have a shorish neshama. We all have a special place inside of us that gravitates to a certain mitzvah more than others. And I'm encouraging of people all the time. It doesn't happen usually day 1 or 2, but start sensitizing yourself. Some people it's tzedakah. Some people it's davening. Some people for them, when they say Ava Rabbah, some people mezuzah. They got into mezuzah. Something happened or some story happened around mezuzah for them. Some people it's Torah, some people it's Torah Be'in. Everyone has to sensitize themselves to Mashali Bechafetz. For me, bris milah was always something very, very dear. I also felt like when it comes to bris, like it was always the Jews. Like it's something about, I trained in London, England. So we went and we would do milahs there. And I think it was on non-Jews. And I think people just feel comfortable when Orthodox Jews show up to the door because they know it's like
our mitzvah.
This is our mitzvah. And I later came to see that milah is so fundamental. It's so much the core of the identity of the Jew, because milah is a bris. It's a bris. It means a covenant. A covenant means that, imagine you have a person and let's say he works for a king, and the king gives him a pin, and the pin of the king says that I represent the king, and he's a minister, and he goes somewhere around the world. Now, if somebody messes around with that minister, is it a slight only on the minister, or is it a slight also to the king? It's a slight to the king because I come in the name of the king. But what if that minister, somewhere along the way, takes off the pin and throws it on the ground? Does the king give his protection to him anymore? No, because he took the bris, he took the covenant away. So the Jew, the covenant is, Hashem, you're my God. Nothing else. You're the only address. You're the only one that I look to for everything. That is my end of the bris. Hashem says, you keep that end of the bris, I will protect you. I will give you everything you need. I'll give you happiness, blessing. I'll take care of you and your children. So if we hold our end of the bris, it's like we're holding on to the bris. So I always felt deeply connected to that message of we are the ones that are trying to share with the world that we're coming in the name of the King.
Really beautiful. So out of history, if there's one person you could spend some time with, maybe eat a nice Shabbos Suda and
Shabbos
talk about the King, who would you sit down with?
That's so beautiful. There's all the cliche answers of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Baal Shem HaKadosh, the Ari HaKadosh, Rabbi Nachman, the Baal HaTanya. I always had this connection to the Baba Sali. I always felt that there was something about the Baba Sali that spoke to me. I try to learn his sefer a lot. The Sfarim say that if you learn Sfarim from Tzaddikim, you get to be with them in their yeshivas up in Shemayim. So I always had this secret place in me that, like, I really was hoping that the Baba Sali and I could be, close. I always felt like his face was very, very alluring to me, and his Torahs just speak to me. And I also related to just that world of Baghdad, that world of just, secretly I wish that we can get back to that type of dress, the robes and the turbans. There's something that like draws me from that world of like Sephardi sitting there with like a great chacham. I think about the Baba Sali a lot. About did I say the Baba Sali or the Ben Ish Chai? I said the Baba Sali?
You said Baba Sali.
Oh, the Baba Sali. I meant the Ben Ish Chai, but the Baba Sali was also on my mind.
So hold on, wait. Are you changing the answer?
So the Ben Ish Chai,
Got it.
Has always been his image. Is always the Baba Sali is also very, very, very much in my mind's eye. I see, but definitely the Ben Ish Chai and the Baba Sali for sure as well. Such a hard question, Yaakov.
I know, it's very hard. Someone once flipped it around to me. I'm like, no, I'm asking the
What
question.
do you say? Okay, no.
I don't know. I think Moshe Rabbeinu, I think my head would explode, but this past week you read the Kairach, and I'm always thinking like this person is putting his life on the line for Klal Yisrael, and Hashem's like, I'm done with Klal Yisrael, and I'm going to start over with you. And he's just constantly just, no. He just loves Klal Yisrael so much. And then they're constantly just like, oh, you took us out of Mitzrayim. It was so good there. And like, he loves them more than anything. And there's something just, I mean, it is very cliche kind of answer, but there's something about him that I think just looking at him, I think my eyes would explode. But yeah, I think that would be my answer. But I don't like the question. I like the answers. I don't like the question. What's the worst advice you've ever received?
It's funny because people flip it as the best advice ever, which is, everybody's heard it a million times before. Whatever you do, you're getting married, whatever you do, just don't go to bed angry. It's the worst advice. Go to bed. Now you're up late, you're tired, your whole next day, you're very tired. Probably the best thing to do is just go to bed, and the next day it's all going to blow over. And really, that was interesting you're saying, Kairo, that was Moshe Rabbeinu's Eitzah, is he didn't want to deal with this tonight. He said, let's wait till the morning. And I heard from Simayer that Moshe Rabbeinu knew that Kairach did a cheshbon nefesh every night before he went to bed. So Moshe Rabbeinu was, if we could just delay this, I know that he's going to realize that he shouldn't make this machlokes. Except Kairach did not go to bed that night. He stayed up all night just riling up the troops to make the machlokes even stronger. So that's why it didn't work. But Moshe Rabbeinu's technique is, if we wait till the morning, it's all going to blow over. And therefore, oftentimes, the worst thing is to just stay up and try to like get to the bottom of this. Say, I see that, it's probably best we just get a good night rest.
Tomorrow's a new day.
Tomorrow's a new day. And you realize like, we love each other. It's probably not worth fighting about.
Very nice. The last question is there a story that happened either in your life or that you read or you heard that really inspires you?
There's always a part of me, I come back to this a lot, that whenever I hear about people in the Holocaust and kind of the things that they did, it always just moves me. It moves me the kind of Mesiras Nefesh that people had for lighting Hanukkah candles, the Mesiras Nefesh that people had for doing mitzvahs, for dancing on Simchas Torah with no Torah. There's certain things about the Holocaust that just like, they touch me in like this way, which goes back to that same Pintel Yid we were talking about, is that the Jew has this place inside of them that's so pure, that's so good. And at one time in a person's life, it's going to wake up. He's going to find that truth. Rabbi Nachman, I'll share this Torah with you. Rabbi Nachman says, a beautiful Torah. He says that there's a certain person, sadly, that he runs away. He's trying to run away from that voice, that conscience, the Jewish guilt, if you will. So what does he do? He runs to things of this world, and he thinks it's going to make him feel good. But he has this feeling like, I'm trying to do an Avera, but I don't know, it's not his geschmack, because I thought it would be, because I keep having this voice like, maybe you shouldn't do this, maybe you shouldn't do this. Like, will you be quiet already? And so he goes more and more and more, and he's just going. And Reb Nachman's like, I feel bad for this guy, Rahman all the time, but he's going. He's trying to find but still the voice is there, the voice of truth. It's like always beckoning to him, like, come home. And he's like, I just want to enjoy this Avera. Leave me alone. And he's going and he's seeking and let me just have a pure Avera. And finally he gets to a point in his life, God forbid, after many, many years, that he has this one moment where he could totally do this Avera. And he doesn't feel the voice. And he's like, oh my goodness, I'm so happy that I can actually just enjoy the Avera. And Reb Nachman says at that moment he dies. And then he sees the truth. That he can never get away from the truth. The truth for a Yid is always calling him, is always beckoning him, saying, come home, come home. So what's the chizuk of that? Is somebody's alive in this world. There's always hope. There's always a voice. There's always a voice that's ringing inside saying, come home, Rabbi Eade. Come home. What you're really looking for, what's really going to make your soul and you feel so good about yourself is Torah and mitzvahs. Come experience it. Some people say, no, yeah, I tried it, this, that. Rav Nachman would say to people, he'd speak to Apikoros, people didn't believe in God. He would say, the same God you don't believe in, I also don't believe in him. I also don't believe in God. Hey, Rabbi, what do you mean? Yeah, the same one you don't believe in, I also don't believe in him. Oh, really? So let's come learn about the one that I do believe in. So every Yid has this voice that's calling him home. Come home. Come home. Learn about, for so many people, the Judaism and the Torah that they never got. Come home. Come learn something. Come learn sometimes the deeper dimension of Torah. Chassidus is a world that is offering somebody a deeper relationship with Hashem, which is a very, very important thing. People want to feel connected to something. Chassidus is not just how to do the mitzvahs, but what is a mitzvah? What is the relation? Not just what are the halachas of tefillin. You need to know if the tefillin's kosher or not. That's pashut. But what am I doing when I'm putting on tefillin? What relationship am I tapping into? Not just you're supposed to have kids, but how do you have a deep relationship with your kids? How do you have an intimate connection with the Kadosh Baruch Hu? That's the world of Chassidus. And that's a world that we're trying to share with our generation. And I really think that kids especially, they're looking for stimulation. They want to feel alive with something. And if they don't find it in something meaningful, they'll go, God forbid, to the streets and other places. They're looking for something deep and something that's going to pull their heart. So Bezrat Hashem, we want to be able to speak that language that's gonna draw the souls of the generation.
Thank you very much. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this week's episode. If you got this far in YouTube, go ahead and leave the code HEALTHY or a sentence about this episode that really resonated with you. Man, that Cholent line. I'm gonna try using that with my wife. Tell her that eating Cholent is actually healthy these days, but you know what I mean. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and share it with friends and family. I think a lot of people are actually gonna be sharing this episode because it just hits so many good points, so many valid and valuable points made. And if you haven't yet, go and use the code word INSPIRE for Twilery. Go to Twilery.com and use the promo code INSPIRE. You're going to get some cash off on your purchase of over $139, and you're going to look good and you're going to feel good. That's the important part. And also, go ahead and go to Sricshopper.com. Use our promo code LL5. You'll get 5% off, and most importantly, you're going to have a Zman Simchasenu, a very happy holiday. And if you didn't yet, go check out our friends at the Good Faith Effort podcast. They are interviewing unbelievable people in this world and the fusion of how the Bible relates to the world. Rav Ari is doing an amazing job. Till next time, have an amazing LL. L'chaim. Living L'chaim.